we have to stand and fight for the great, because not only do we believe it's possible, we know it's possible. We've experienced it. So when we don't see that, when we see the standard lowered, we have to acknowledge it. We have to recognize that. Hey, everybody.
Hello.
Hey, guys. This is MaJeliv. We're the Vasquez family. I'm Matthew.
I'm Jemmy.
I'm Joshua.
I'm Jenny.
I'm Jose.
And today we are going to be reviewing and sharing our thoughts with you on Captain America, Brave New World. We saw this movie a couple days ago. And ever since then, we've been talking a lot about it, reflecting on how this movie impacted us. Overall, we had a fun time. It was a good movie, fairly enjoyable. But it was quite frustrating when we know that this movie could have been great. There was a lot of potential in this movie. And as big Marvel fans, as big Captain America fans, we are invested in these characters. And again, there was a lot of potential here that it felt deflated by compromise. And so what happened, right?
That is the question. What happened indeed? And that's the question that we know we most likely cannot answer in terms of what actually happened with this movie and the execution of it.
Yeah.
That's okay though. It is a question we'll be able to answer to some degree toward the end of this video, so stick around for that. But it definitely felt like it actually was not as brave as the title implies, because there were some risks that were not taken that we can talk about. Ultimately, we just felt like Anthony Mackie, he didn't get what he deserved in terms of a story, in terms of Captain America. So, and again, we'll go into this a little bit deeper, but ultimately, it's that sense of why compromise the story and the characters and their full potential.
And again, that's just it. There was potential. There were a lot of great elements that we will touch on. Before we get into the missed opportunities, we will share with you the positives, the things that we did enjoy. It's just that overall theme, though, with each of those positives of what would have happened if they committed to those elements even further. The whole movie as a whole, without getting into spoilers, which we will get into spoilers soon. We'll leave a warning for those of you that haven't seen the movie. There was not a lot of definitive risks. Where was the drive? And it wasn't always clear. So, again, we'll be unpacking all of that. Let's jump in.
All right. This is the positives. We're going to be talking about some things that really they were great.
And
actually,
unarguably,
a good sign of the potential that was there, but then it got deflated. So these were the little sparks of hope that we saw throughout the film. One of the main things was the acting performances. The way that the actors showed up to this movie, considering all of the reshoots that they had to do, all the technical aspects that we don't really know in terms of the final product. A lot of things did come across. Anthony Mackie's performance, we talked about it. Yeah. He deserved a better movie, considering what he's been in. But just the way that he cared. You could sense this weight of history to him, the way that he's been through so much, and now he's having to step into this role. It's extremely difficult to have to read a script to connect to the piece and to play that out, and considering everything, he did a wonderful job just interacting with the world.
And also, got to talk about Harrison Ford stepping in as President Ross. He did fantastic. He just added so much more depth to the character, and definitely, at least for me, was quite a highlight. Everyone, Danny Ramirez, right, as Joaquin, playing Falcon, and even Shira. Yeah, Shira as Ruth, the Black Widow girl.
She was so good. She was amazing.
Yeah.
Like, she was small but mighty, and the skills she has, I don't know how much of that was stunts.
Yeah, and that was well developed too, like in terms of her character.
I think a lot of some of those crazy jumps and kicks and flips were probably a stunt double, but she was incredible.
I mean, she played it in a way where it could definitely have been.
Like, I would be scared of her. Like, she's tough.
But she also had a way.
You can kind of sense that presence too, even when she's introduced, and then when you find out, it's like, oh, well, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and then Isaiah Bradley, him as a character, that's just the scenes that he was in were definitely very, very raw, very real. You could sense that there was that pain and that suffering from his past, but then also this tough skin, this armor that he wears constantly, while also being vulnerable with Sam, with Joaquin. Like, those scenes were really special, especially what you got about. I mean, I guess we don't have to. We didn't really give a warning into spoilers, but you could sense that he cared deeply about his history, his past, what he's been through, and you felt all of it. I felt all of it.
I felt heartbroken too with what happened to him and his journey. Just like, man, like, why is he in this situation again or something similar? So you really felt for him.
And then in terms of villains, we had a Tim Blake playing the leader.
So Sam Stearns.
Samuel Stearns. It's not really a spoiler because that's been talked about. And he did a great job. There's some things there, that certain decisions creatively that, didn't really help him out, but for what he was given, he did do a great job in that almost that creepy, very tactical mindset and also just behavior.
Yep.
But again, there was a lot of factors going into his character that did alter his impact on the audience.
Yeah, it was hard to really understand kind of his full scope and his storyline, but the presence he did have, he was quite a great actor, like a good performance to play that character. Little bit we got to really develop of him. He was wonderful. And then one of our favorites, Jimmy, you want to talk about him? No, you go.
Sidewinder, Giancarlo Esposito was, dude, he's constantly just blows us away as a bad character. His presence is always just fantastic to watch, and he scared me a lot.
I think the highest tension created in this film of like a villain and the true threat was him when he was on screen.
Yeah.
So
ultimately everybody really just showed up for their roles, and it really did make them all shine. So thankfully on the acting side, nothing was really weak. Like everything was everyone just gave their 100%, which was really, really great to watch. So.
Right. And you guys talking about Sidewinder, that really leads us into some very positive moments in the film, story elements that did work. So I guess we're gonna give you a spoiler countdown. Just be careful if you would like to leave. Go see the movie. Come back.
No, we're talking
do that. Please do that.
I don't want to ruin the movie.
And if you don't really care, then 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Okay. So there's a scene with Sidewinder where he gets super he stops Sam in his tracks. Like Sam is headed somewhere and he is interrupted abruptly by Sidewinder just hunting him down, trying to kill him. Very gnarly. He gets stabbed here and here, Sam.
Crazy.
And a grenade is thrown into his car. It blows up. He has to sneak around the. Genuinely, I think genuinely all of us were out of our seats.
Yeah, a long time.
It was a really well done moment, suspensefully. It reminded me a lot of Winter Soldier, in terms of that Bucky, just that suspense, the unexpectedness, and something popping out of nowhere. That mystery really started to build.
The intensity of what those scenes were. Because with Bucky, I remember all those fight scenes were intense. And I think, like you said, Josh, that intensity was back with this specific scene.
Well, also that because Cap, Sam Wilson's Cap is also fully human. So he can die a lot easier than, super soldiers. So it was even more scary because... He got stabbed. It was crazy. Yeah. I was losing it.
And then also, away from their violence, also just their dialogue with each other. When they're collaborating, I guess you could say, where he's talking to him about the buyer, what intel he had as a prisoner, Sidewinder.
Yeah.
And those scenes also made him more scary. I think the contrast between being super scary physically and fighting and shooting and then also being still, smiling, all of that just builds a character. That's why Ultron was scary.
Yes. And also with the relationships, Isaiah and Cap's relationship was really beautiful to watch. Those moments that they did have, you could sense their connection and Isaiah's true concerns for Cap, and kind of that battle, that internal battle. But I did love the scenes with them. There was a scene in a prison that was really powerful. I think that's one of the most touching scenes between them.
Yeah.
There was another one where they were kind of fighting together, like training and stuff, having fun. That one was okay. But I think for me, the favorite was the prison scene that they had. You can really sense that relationship and those feelings between them and what they're going through. So
I'd say for us too, because of the context that we do have, because of the show that did come out before this movie, just to see them connect, and it almost felt like no time went by. So that was very comforting. But obviously that also has its flaws too, which we'll get in later in this video. But overall, with what they were able to do and in the context of the movie, you can tell that there's been a pretty special relationship built between those characters, even with Joaquin and Cap.
Right, and there'd be some scenes too where they're flying in the air. Those were really well done. I do feel that they're just, I think their voiceover in talking as if they are flying that was enough to really keep us there, to have us still involved in what was going on.
Yeah.
Visually, there were some distracting parts, but even still, the vision of what they were trying to do, even though it might have not 100% delivered, who knows how much time they had, how much time did scenes changed, and we might get into that a little bit later. I think it did mix together well. There's just some things that they could have done that could have made it a bit better. So the action sequences had good vision, it just wasn't definitive, where the whole process could have been very detailed, very careful, and we didn't get the best that we could have. And that actually extends into the Red Hulk fights.
Yeah.
You could sense that there was a lot of passion and excitement going into that element.
Oh, yeah.
Having the Hulk jump, having him clap, and everything going crazy. It was very insane.
We haven't seen that in a long time.
Yeah, you could just sense there was a lot of fear there.
The different like features, like facial features, and the resemblance to like Harrison Ford, and I don't know, the CGI and seeing that like its full power. I mean, there were some flaws that didn't make scientific sense. Like if he shrinks or gets bigger, like his clothes kind of has to take an effect.
Yeah, he should have held his pants
he was
up
like
or something.
stretchy pants man,
There's some elastics, man.
I mean,
I don't know where he got those, but
who knows what fabric he's got on.
Anyway, those little things, but the CGI and the scenes with him were really fun. It was fun to see
Harrison Ford.
That's so great, man.
do what
He's
he
always-
does. So
oh,
Considering that too, he probably had to do some motion capture for that too.
Yeah.
And then Sam and Joaquin in the hospital when they were talking toward the end of the film.
That was very touching. Beautiful
Very, very
scene.
touching. Very, very beautiful. They understood the weight and the gravity of that moment. The fact that it was a Latino man and a black man having a scene together as the stars of this film, a superhero film.
Yeah.
It's very powerful.
It's quite a beautiful sight to see.
Right, and it reflects that element of being a superhero in the day-to-day. You know, stepping up to the plate and fulfilling a role greater than ourselves. And they really connected and bonded in that moment. It wasn't as again, we go back to the impact, the effect. It wasn't as strong as it could have been, but that wasn't their fault. They showed up, they did the scene with as much care as they could, and it actually was quite touching.
yeah, and the big moment for me, I remember, I know some of you might feel the same, was when Bucky walks into the hospital.
Yeah.
That moment was like it kind of connected those emotions back to that Bucky and original Captain America story. And then to see him show up for the new Captain America and him, fearing for his friend's life and all of that moment was like magic.
It was beautiful.
Yeah, it
Till
was
the end.
till
Writing
the
was not
end.
interesting.
The
It was
end was like
compromised. It was compromised.
Little
For
compromise.
sure.
like my heart was really happy seeing all of that, and then all of a sudden they did something at the end of that scene that
Lost
I was like,
10%.
really, like, why did you have to mess with
Yeah,
It
this?
was
and
like
there's a reason
90%
for that.
wonderful.
Yeah, there's a
Yes.
reason
and
for
then
that.
last 10%.
But you'll
was
hear more about that probably later.
Yeah, it's
maybe.
fine. And then also with even with the character Ruth, what I did love about every scene was that you could truly tell that she was there to help the president, or like wanting to also do what was right. She wasn't like, at first it could be very easy for her to be annoying or like irritating because she's like trying to butt in and whatever that, Sam Wilson and Joaquin are wanting to do secretly because President Ross won't let them. But she had a genuine want to like, okay, what is actually going on? So I loved that about her. And just, every scene that she was in, she was just like on a mission to really find out, okay, what actually happened. She wasn't just jumping to conclusions. So I did love that with the whole of the film, with, the mystery that was involved in it. It just also helped carry the story a little bit more.
Because we had an emotional journey with her, I feel, throughout the film.
Yeah.
Her as a character, really trusting Sam and working with them. The audience was first annoyed at her, and then by the end of the film, we had already like laughed at a joke that she made about Bucky. We're like, this woman is awesome. She's super epic in the way that
Chemistry
she
was
can
awesome.
fight. So that journey as well was it left us with something.
She really earns her place too, because she's a new character to us. She doesn't have a story that we're like already invested in her. But she has such a presence to her, and she commits so well as an actress that you really feel her scenes and you feel what she's going through. And she does carry her end of the story really well. So I'm really thankful for her character in this story, because I do appreciate kind of that presence that she had. I don't know how else to explain it, but I
I guess
think
that woman role too, actually, the more I think about it, she's like the only like epic woman in this movie. So, I mean, yay.
It's
pretty
and
awesome.
I think it also, in some way, even though we didn't get a lot of connection to the whole Black Widow story link to this one, and I know the guys will probably talk about it later, to have a Black Widow in this film was like a breath of fresh air. It was very refreshing to see, there's a Black Widow here in this movie, like that. Rightfully so.
We're gonna those were our positive notes, things that really stood out to us that stuck the landing. But now we're gonna go into what didn't stick the landing
or
and
what compromised the landing.
What compromised the landing, and what made it very, very rocky, and it wasn't the plane's fault. So let's get into the missed opportunities.
All right, so those are the positives, and now we're going to dive into the missed opportunities. Again, we're going to be tapping into things that were in the movie. These were elements that we're not going to be diving too much into what could have been, what should have been. Again, all of these points that we're going to hit at were in the movie. It's just this strange and bizarre non-commitment to them, to have a definitive, bold risk and just diving into these characters, into these elements. So that's what we'll be unpacking, beginning with, Sam's journey as Captain America. A character like Sam Wilson that we've been with for years now, since The Winter Soldier. And, even Anthony Mackie as an actor and the journey he's taken, right? And now leading his own movie, like the main leading man of his movie. And it felt at times like the movie was not letting him fully step into that role. I mean, again, the man not only has worked super hard for it, but the character, too, is literally taking on the mantle of Captain America. And, there's a lot that comes with that. And I think immediately the first thing is this movie should have come out sooner. When you talk about momentum and drive, with Falcon and the Winter Soldier, the series was fantastic. We loved it. And to propel the audience into the next step, ideally we would have gotten that. I think a lot of it too was it's been too long since we've seen Sam, and so that's a big thing. And learning more about Sam's internal struggles, right? I mean, they tackled that a lot in Falcon and the Winter Soldier in the show, right? Him not feeling like he's enough to take on the shield, to take on that mantle, but now he has it, and he's having to live that out and do that. And there's a lot of examples of that in the movie where they show us, but they never go deeper. It's very surface. It's very exposition. It's very just plot point, like to go from here to here.
That was really the thing that shocked me, quite honestly, is how much of this movie and Sam's screen time is devoted to exposition. He was leading the charge in let's explain as much as we can in as little time as possible, and yet the movie was only like barely hour and 40 minutes, whatever it was. It was not a long movie. And I argue that, and we're arguing, lean into those elements that really start to pull back the layers of what Sam is going through as he is now truly having to step into this role, actively so, even doing things that he's not 100% crazy about, like being side by side with President Ross now. I mean, those are things that we can really unpack even more, and it never really got flushed out. A lot of the exposition, we talked a little bit about this, it felt kind of like a 1980s cartoon even, a lot of it was like, all right, now we got to go do this because this and that, because this and that, and let's go do that because this and that. And there was not much else there in a few of those moments. But
and it's bizarre because, again, the character has been built up for so long. He's had a journey. And that's why it's frustrating, is because to come this far and then to falter like this doesn't make sense. All the pieces are there as a character. He's rich, he's dynamic, and then what Anthony Mackie brings to it, it's all there, and again, the journey he took in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a lot of it was him not feeling worthy to even pursue the shield. Remember, most of the show he doesn't have the mantle. It's John Walker, and it's not until the last episode that he gets the shield officially and becomes Captain America. So okay, that's where we ended. Now it's okay, you have the shield now, you are Captain America. How are you taking that on? And we barely get into that. We barely do. I mean, it's maybe touched on briefly, but talking about Falcon and the Winter Soldier, there was a lot of loose threads as well. Characters that we're starting to get invested in, we have a connection to, or we're wondering about. They start establishing these things or teasing us with, Zemo, right? Where did Zemo go? We kind of got a glimpse of that at the end of the show. But again, we haven't heard of him in like 4 years. Power Broker, there was this big build-up to who the Power Broker was and all of that. We haven't heard about the Power Broker. And then connecting to Elijah Bradley, who they teased for potentially the Young Avengers. Where is this kid? Like, where is he? The grandson of Isaiah Bradley. Yeah. So So I'm saying, like, Sam's journey has been going. It's, and to your point, it feels they compromised on his journey, on Captain America's journey, for the sake of whatever else they're working on building up in the bigger scheme of things. It's just compromise.
I really do think that some people will argue, if you bring in Zemo, and by some people I mean fans, but also some of the writers involved with this, that bringing in Zemo, Power Broker, and Elijah, it would have been too much. And however, is it really too much if it's going to help you flush out your Isaiah Bradleys? If it's going to help you bring out more elements out of Sam, the way they did in Falcon and the Winter Soldier,
right?
It really is a missed opportunity. And because why? It highlights this now new phase of the reality of being Captain America without super soldier serum in your blood.
Yeah.
And so now we're going to bring that later on to talk about how that could have juxtaposed beautifully with President Ross. But we'll pause on that for a second, because I want to talk even more this surprise moment with Bucky coming into the hospital. And we talked about it in the positives because that was such a great scene until it wasn't. Until it just became another Marvel self-aware moment. It was this wonderful exchange was happening between these two guys that I have those memories of them going back and forth and not liking each other in the vehicle. Remember that car scene?
Yeah.
I mean, these guys did not like each other. Then the series on Disney Plus gave us that awesome, the way they came together fully, finally, really becoming truly, truly great friends. And here Bucky shows up to be there for his friend who's going through something truly difficult. Mm-hmm. And then they make this joke at the end, like, oh, did your speech writing team help you with that little speech about making me feel better about, being a regular guy in this cap suit? And look, fine, give Sam that line. But Bucky, keep Bucky sincere and he can laugh a bit about it and say, no, man, I'm being serious.
Right.
I mean it. You're it, man. You're the guy. You're the guy that has to be the human guy behind this costume, because you give people something to aspire to. Like, don't run away from that and make a joke about it.
And especially when Captain America as a character has always been extremely sincere.
Yeah.
He stands for sincerity, comparing and contrasting with Tony Stark, who's always ironic and always like sarcastic. And so that's what Captain America stood for. And obviously Sam Wilson is a different character, is a different person. But as Bucky represents that part of Steve Rogers. There's that element of Steve Rogers that's still in Sam Wilson's life. So that's a moment where, and we talked about it, you could still have an element of Sam trying to like brush off the emotion, the compliment, but for Bucky to keep fighting for his friend and letting him know, making sure he knows that he's enough, that he's got this. And so, Sam's relationship with Bucky was there. Mm-hmm. It just definitely was a missed opportunity to let that scene land.
And I want to remind us, because they mentioned in the positives, the girls did, I believe, it's such a... We got a joke right after that when Ruth makes a joke about wanting to date Bucky and Sam's like, he's 110 years old. That is a good joke. That landed beautifully because it added a texture and layer to Ruth that we hadn't seen yet. Again, she's a new character. That joke makes sense.
Yeah. The
joke with Sam and Bucky, not necessary. It turned something great and it made it just good. So there it is.
And then talking about relationships, the other one that Josh, my mom, and Jemmy hit on was the relationship with Joaquin. We did love the dynamic between them as a duo. But the main thing we talked about coming right out of the movie was, it was great to see Joaquin, but we realized they don't establish him. Like, if you've never seen the TV show Falcon and the Winter Soldier, you don't know who this guy is. You don't know who this kid is. And so it's like, how do you make the audience who's never seen the show understand who this guy is? And so there's missed opportunities to find authentic ways for us to connect with him as an audience, to see that relationship between them, that friendship. We talked about examples like, they talked about aerial training and training in the air. Why don't you show us that, right? You show the journey of Joaquin becoming Falcon, not just like putting on the suit and knowing how to do it, and then, it just, there's a lot there. And I think it would have made Joaquin's fall, for instance, when he gets hurt, even more impactful, because you see that camaraderie and like kinship between them growing because they're flying in the skies together and they're doing this thing.
One of the movies that struck audiences when two friends fall out of the sky is Top Gun. You could have had that moment with Joaquin falling if you build it by showing that montage, that visual relationship of them training together in the air, and also with Isaiah. There's that sense of training, because the movie begins and you're like, man, Sam he's been working out, like he's kicking butt, right? What's going on? And that question gets answered. Well, he's been training with Isaiah Bradley, so that cool, awesome. But then when we were training with Isaiah Bradley, we see Sam training, but Joaquin is just kind of like this strange
goofball.
Yeah, which you can have that, but then also mix in Joaquin getting trained and learning how to fight, learning how to fly. Like, it just, you can extend that, make the movie a little bit longer. You're gonna be okay, MCU. I promise. People will watch this. We want to see that development, and they didn't do that. So that, again, adding to what you're saying.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. And then the other thing was Samuel Stearns and the character of Samuel Stearns and the build up to him as the villain, as the leader, right? And you know, a lot of the tension and suspense and mystery around the character was just kind of dropped. I mean, from the get go. One, because he was already being implied in the trailer, and two, he's kind of shown in the shadows in the first 2 minutes of the movie. And so that whole sense of like espionage and who's actually behind this thing and the build up, again, it was, a lot of that was deflated because we already kind of saw it coming. We knew a twist was coming. We knew that something was going to happen. And so a part of that too is the trailer giving away too much. And it's that balance of like, how do you sell and promote a movie, but also not give away the entire experience, you know? And so it's hard to, you know, you lose that sense of surprise.
Yeah, I don't, and I never really came to fully understand what was the reasoning behind that, and I'll never really know unless I have a magical run-in with the marketing team for this movie. It just, you know, it's strange because you could have really marketed this movie as espionage, you know, kind of like a Bourne Identity movie. You don't know who the bad guy is in the shadows, and it's Sam and Joaquin figuring out. See, you could spend a little bit more time in the trailer and start establishing who Joaquin is. Who is this kid, and why is he kind of right next to Sam all the time? And if I don't know about the show, you start getting intrigued, like, oh, cool, why is he flying with him? That's so cool. Who is this kid? You know, you build that intrigue like that. But again, you can establish President Ross, or rather, former Secretary Ross becoming President Ross. You establish that in the trailer. That's exciting. What? He's the president now? Madman Ross is the president. What's going on there? You know, so all of these things just didn't make sense. Primarily now, let's lean into, okay, well, the trailer is what it is. But still, okay, if you are telling us in the trailer that the Red Hulk is coming, then what would have happened, and again, leaning into what's there, if you really start to unpack what Sam is going through with his inner battle of not feeling enough, because he's a human being, right? So this doubt, this insecurity is his own monster within. Yeah. And you have Ross dealing with this monster he's becoming. That would have been a really cool juxtaposition if you can really unpack what Sam is going through far more than they did. Visually, cinematically, it can be done. You know, it can. Again, I referenced the Bourne movies because you have this like conflicted soldier that's trying to figure himself out. And you juxtapose it with the bombastic, like this man becoming a Red Hulk. That's pretty interesting to me. I would have been far more intrigued and invested in.
And it's frustrating because again, the Red Hulk is Thunderbolt Ross is an iconic character, especially for like, you know, the comic book fans that love that stuff. We're not as much into that. We've learned as we've been Marvel fans over the years with the movies, but you know, if you truly care about these characters, you're gonna give them the time they deserve. And it felt, you know, we get this sense as an audience that from the trailer and then how we receive it in the movie when we're watching it, that it was all very just, it was a lot of surface, you know, and not peeling back those layers. And, you know, the opportunity to use Ross as a parallel and a personification, like you said, that of Sam Wilson's internal struggles and those internal monsters that he's dealing with, and the doubts and the world around him, like not believing in him and having to fight that. There's a lot of opportunity there. And then the reality that a lot of the Red Hulk and having to build him up because he literally came out of nowhere. And, you know, they mentioned President Ross in the trailer, but again, all of that was just so fast that having to explain all this stuff overshadowed Cap's journey. Yeah. And then the reality that just basic physics, Sam Wilson fighting the Hulk without super soldier serum, how realistic is that? And we're not trying to say that, oh, Sam Wilson couldn't handle it, but it's the reality of fighting physics and characters and heroes in the MCU. The fact that Thor had a hard time fighting Hulk, I mean, the Norse god of thunder having a hard time fighting Hulk, that to me is just, it's hard to fully wrap our head around the way that they set it up, right? And the fights and all of that. And
so the missed opportunity there, and I was telling this to the family earlier, is, you know, you could have really had that sacrificial lamb kind of instance, this where Sam literally gets battered and broken fighting the Hulk, so that he can Red Hulk rather, in order to wake up Ross from within. And it's upon Sam breaking literally, almost near death, dare I say. Whoa, really? Almost kill Sam? What are you talking about, Jose? Yeah, well, that would make us all jolt in the audience, right? And then you really earn that pedal falling on Red Hulk's palm, and seeing the broken body of a companion, a man you earlier in the film said, let's change the world by bringing the Avengers back. We'll talk about that in a minute, but still, you could build on that, and now you've got this hero who's been broken by your monster that you couldn't control, the pedal of your daughter, the thought of your daughter. Now we've earned that moment, and now I'm there. I believe it.
We show Sam's heart. We show Sam's heart.
What he's willing to give up.
That's what makes him Captain America.
Right.
And then it adds commentary to the character of Captain America, what he stands for, to America as a country. Yeah, it just changes the movie. It changes the entire dynamic of the movie in a very powerful way. And so, again, I think what's frustrating is that it was there. It was all there.
It just wasn't. It really that whole approach, making Sam semi-invincible versus an unstoppable force like a Red Hulk, made it seem like it just wasn't decided amongst the writers. Is he really tackling being just human, or is he really wanting super soldier serum? Like, it just wasn't. It didn't seem decided, and that fight. It was cool. It was a really cool fight, but I feel like we really kind of missed that opportunity.
Yeah. And then
Ross's
with Red Hulk. I mean, like I said, finally the gap between the last time we saw him, which was Black Widow, and then this movie, a lot happens, and especially some of the character story elements, like Betty, like his daughter. We haven't seen Betty since The Incredible Hulk, which was pre-Mark Ruffalo. So if you have never seen that movie, or you haven't seen that movie since, like in over 10 years, it's going to be very hard to remember that stuff. And so to pull that out from like nowhere in terms of the context, right? It's a lot of work. And so, okay, you want to bring back Betty, so bring back Betty. Like let's see her more, or show us those flashbacks. Again, you have to the assumptions that everyone in the audience knows what's going on. It just, even though this was maybe their intention, it comes off as ignorant. It just comes off as ignorant.
Yeah.
Because if you have someone that's never seen it, that is interested in these characters, in this story, they're being left out.
And listen, and I can imagine that there's a scenario out there where Liv Tyler wasn't available for filming. Okay, let's talk. That's a possibility. Right. You do have this character of Agent Taylor, and she's always around Ross. That seems to be like his right hand person in terms of like his security, and keeping his health and all. If you have her remind him of Betty, and he has these flashes of Betty, and we start getting visuals of her, who she is, and that's his daughter, like visually get us really connecting to, maybe even have a moment where Agent Taylor and Ross are walking down the, what is it, the cherry blossom trees, right? Is that the right tree? Yeah. And then, Ross has a moment where he kind of looks back and he remembers when he would walk this way with his little girl. Like, there's visual things you could have done that you don't have to know that Betty was in The Incredible Hulk with Edward Norton. You don't have to know that. But if we establish that Betty, then just the name Betty and the image of who she is really has an effect on him. Now, Harrison Ford did amazingly with what he was given. But again, if you do these little things visually, that from Act 1 into that last moment with that pedal falling.
And he's a world-class actor, so he's adding those elements by himself. He's doing the work, as all these actors did.
Yep.
And so, again, it just comes down to ultimately the missed opportunities from, like Josh said, the reported rewrites and reshoots, and just overall a lack of what feels like a lack of intentionality, to this story. What was the purpose? What was the intention?
And enough with the jokes. That moment when he's finally transforming at the end, and that one reporter's like, "Oh, they come in red now," whatever that joke was about the Hulk. Really? I mean, you're having Agent Taylor have a freak out moment because this guy she's supposed to look out for is transforming into a monster, and then you cut to a reporter who, like, what is the point of that, friends? Come on. Like, you just keep taking away from the experience of, like, oh my God, this guy is actually transforming. So things like that have to get ironed out. I just don't understand it, quite frankly.
Yeah. So overall, I mean, I know we went off here and talked about these different 5 points, but we think it's all important, and we think, there's many things we could talk about, we could have or should have, but it's all there, man. It's like Sam Wilson matters so much to this universe, to the cinematic universe. He deserves better. Again, Anthony Mackie deserves better. And so that's what we were sitting with and wrestling with, was how do we, kind of get all our thoughts together. So
really quick, I forgot to say something about Samuel Stearns. We talked a little bit about it, but he was revealed too quickly. I think you could have really had a dynamic villain there. But why am I finding out in early Act 2 that this is the guy? Like, no, keep him in the shadows. Hide him, because then we find out later who's actually transforming President Ross. That was a missed opportunity.
Well, and it was, I think, the lack of decision on a definitive villain, because you have
Correct.
Samuel Stearns, you have Red Hope, but then there was weird moments where they were trying to make us empathize or sympathize with Samuel Stearns, and a Sidewinder as a character was a lot more dynamic. He was a lot more threatening. Like, this man will tear everything down. And so, there's things like that it's just makes you scratch your head a little, So ultimately, again, what happened, why certain decisions were made, we will never know. There is no way of knowing. Only what we can speculate, and that's what we can learn from it. And those were our reflections and commentary on the missed opportunities. But we'll bring everyone back to close this thing out. Okay, guys, so those were our thoughts on Captain America: Brave New World. There were a lot of thoughts. We talked for a while there, but that's what's on our heart. That's what we've been reflecting on here as a family of artists. We've been so blessed to be able to experience so many amazing, incredible memories with Marvel. For me, being able to work on set on Marvel too. Dot on Black Widow, me on Miss Marvel. It's just Marvel means a lot to us, and so we have to share these things. We have to, because as an audience, as fans of Marvel, we have to stand and fight for the great, because not only do we believe it's possible, we know it's possible. We've experienced it. Yeah. And so when we don't see that, when we see the standard lowered, we have to acknowledge it. We have to recognize that. And it's what was the true intention of this movie? We will never know. But whatever it was, why didn't they fully commit to it? There's just kind of questions that we'll be reflecting on and thinking about. But overall, watching this movie, reviewing it, has been illuminating.
That's the big thing. That question, that looming question that we started with. What happened to Captain America: Brave New World? We as we speculate, we will use what we speculate to learn for ourselves when we are in the decision-making situation, that we don't compromise, because that's all we will have control over. And in that, we are grateful for this movie, because it just does nothing but teach us how to handle situations when there's time crunches and there's conflicts with this and that. It's just, compromise is not an option, because we have to stand by our characters and the story, and what it's really trying to do. So that's what we can.
It's a call to action, that's for sure.
Correct.
Yeah. We've been so invested in Anthony Mackie and his journey to becoming the new Captain America. And I think this film was the time and the opportunity for him to really shine as his new character. And I feel like the movie missed the mark on truly honoring his legacy of this story and allowing this new role of this new Captain America to really shine. So that's a bummer, to leave the theater and kind of feel like, oh, we could have had this new reality of the new Captain America and see him again in action and in this new journey. And we were kind of robbed of that experience.
Yeah. I mean, that's the thing. Anthony Mackie deserves better. His Captain America deserves better. And, it's still possible. I mean, it's just let the man lead. Let the leading man of your movie lead this movie. And again, there are moments where they did that. And then there were moments where they just didn't fully commit to it, or it got overshadowed.
Leading doesn't mean all-powerful.
Right.
Leading also means being broken.
And vulnerable.
Being vulnerable and going through stuff.
And again, the actors did that. So, to close this all up, thank you to the actors and, again, the people that were involved in this movie that did pour their hearts out into it. And we see you and we thank you, because, again, you gave us a really enjoyable experience in the theater, but also you got us talking a lot. And so it definitely is inspiring nonetheless to, again, see these acting performances and just see them bring their A game. So again, thank you for listening all this far. If you've come this far and have heard our thoughts, we definitely would love to hear what you thought of this movie, of Captain America, what you thought of Brave New World, what this character means to you, what things you really liked, maybe what you didn't like, and how you feel about Marvel as a whole. Like we talked about, those deeper issues at play with intentionality and with them potentially spreading themselves too thin, and that sense of, again, what's the intention, where are they headed, and patience, the power of patience and building up these characters. It took 10 years to get to Endgame. You can't just recreate Endgame, and it's that too. So there is a power to patience and to intentionality. That's our way of closing it up.
Yeah.
So meet us in the comments. And besides that, you guys go out there, spread your light, and have a MaJeliv day. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.
Bye.